Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. This is Jack Nicholson. I'm still alive, and we're still alive, and we're going to do a show tonight. That's right. Never rub another man's rhubarb. All right. Well, how's it going? United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. We got Darragh Mason here with us tonight. We got Christina Giordano's here. And she'll be on cam shortly to keep this cam in the right direction. We got Jay McNicholas here tonight. And this is our Halloween show. This is the Supreme Halloween show. All month. Well, we started Halloween back in September, I think.
Wait, you didn't tell me the Supremes are going to be singing?
This is the Supreme Halloween show. And tonight's guest, Darragh Mason, his book, Song of the Dark Man, Father of Witches, Lord of the Crossroads. And what a book, man. I love it. It's really good and informative and well written and definitely creepy. And I'm a guy that was raised Christian in Georgia with a Baptist preacher father who's tripped and saw fallen angels on LSD before, possibly. So luckily I'm a little open, but definitely sets a tone for Halloween, man. You're basically like, okay, all those guys that burned all the witches and all that stuff because they were into the, meeting with the dark man or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
Basically in your face, here's a bird to your face. We're doing it. So tell me how this started. Was it at the Crossroads?
I first started picking up on the archetype in folklore that I was studying, Irish folklore. I kept noticing this archetype of like a dark rider that would kind of interrupt the journey at night, and it was kind of ambiguous as to what the character might be. It could be sometimes the Lord of the Dead or the folkloric devil. And sometimes it would be the king of the fairies, but it had all the same attributes. I started interviewing magicians and witches and magical practitioners for my podcast, Spirit Box. And they started mentioning a dark man who would initiate them into magic. And kind of those two kind of areas overlapped. And couple of years later, I'd gone pretty deep into the research, and the book was born. And basically, I found references to this kind of royal spirit way back into like 12th century Irish manuscripts, describing the characteristics as magical practitioners and witches would describe it today. So and I was kind of very much led that way. So yeah.
Well, so can you describe the archetype for us? Because I mean there's many different versions. That one of my favorite Liam Neeson movies is called Dark Man, and I don't think it's the same archetype, but I don't know if you're familiar with that movie.
Oh, I know the movie,
yeah. So is that the same type of archetype, or is it strictly like demon devil, that kind of?
Well, I said the kind of the Liam Neeson film, the archetype is kind of he becomes a monster, right? And takes revenge. I just
watched that first one recently.
Yeah, and he takes revenge on the people who created him, right?
Yeah, who disfigured him, right?
Yeah, but this archetype is the dark man. It's an inspirational, disruptive force that has no singular name or form. It's there's no kind of canonized texts. What I really have done is I've picked out the kind of shared characteristics from various different mythologies, principally Irish and British mythologies, and out of those kind of fragments of folklore and what I was able to derive from witchcraft, we can piece together the archetype in terms of a recognizable pattern.
Mm-hmm.
The that's as far as you can go with this. This is a mystery, because essentially, we're talking about, well, trying to describe the motivations or purpose of something that isn't human, that was never human, in my opinion, predates humanity, and has, a far greater intellect than we can even really comprehend. But the primary areas that I kind of noted in my research that would help identify the dark man would be the dark appearance and appellation, appearance as a composite being, shape-shifting, the interceptor, so that the nighttime journey being intercepted, a trickster nature, and sex and sexual interest in human beings. Those are consistent. Those, you get a variant of.
What about an aversion to sun or sunlight?
Not so much.
No. Well, everything you described also describes the character of Darkman that Liam Neeson plays. He's turned into a monster. He hangs out in the shadows. But it's very close, and except for he has an aversion to light and the sun because of the nature of his disfigurement. His skin was destroyed, so he makes this special skin, and he's a changeling. He can turn into anybody with the skin. He can make his face look like anyone at this point.
That's interesting.
So that's the Darkman archetype. But he goes out in the sun for too long, and it burns the skin away. If he's if he's out at night, the fake skin stays on, but as soon as the light hits it, I think he has like 90 minutes, and then you see some scenes in the movie where he's like he's at the last few minutes. You can see the skin is starting to smoke off his face, and he's trying to hide it. It's a pretty neat. It's a neat concept, and I wish they'd have done a few more movies. I think they did 4.
There's like 3 or 4, good. But
I think they're up to 4.
Sam Raimi, you can't go wrong. But one thing I wanted to say is, first off, to let you know, this radio show, we've been doing it for 17 years, and basically it's because I saw a lot of weird shit. And the reason I saw it was, I believe, trauma and suffering. It was 17, testicular cancer. I woke up, we took a nut from you, and I joke and say it's Odin's meatball, and I would think the eye is a little bit more important than a nut, but I understand the suffering part of losing something and that making you go nuts and see stuff for sure. And then shortly after that, a few years later, my dad died, and I started to have a lot of bizarre experiences. A lot of them were yes, I experimented with drugs and had some experiences, but there were also times where I was completely sober and saw things. I was like, I'm seeing this sober. I must be really crazy. and those things have ranged from UFO type stuff to light beings, to one time some beings in the woods with cloaks. We're a black box where a friend saw them with me. Other people would see these things, and a lot of UFO activity over different houses that I moved to that seemed like friends would say because it was attracted to me, and I didn't know if that was true, and I didn't certainly want to get crazy and start, I'm the chosen one, and turn into Heaven's Gate and all that weird stuff. But that's why we're here mostly, is just because we've experienced this stuff. Now, one of the things that's coming to me, one time it was Halloween night, and I forget, it was early 20s, I forget the years now, but I was definitely on psychedelics, and I saw some beings around a lake that were very serpentine, reptilian-like, and they were not physical. It's almost like holograms. And one was like a humanoid shaped, like kind of reminded me of Medusa, but I don't think it had snake hair. It had weird hair, though, that was very weird. And then there was like a hydra there, like from Greek mythology, like it was its friend. And I was scared to death. My first thoughts, being from Georgia and Christian background and all that stuff. And on the show, we studied Norse, shamanism, and all sorts of things. I love Native American culture and shamanism and things like that. But at that particular time, my first thought was, oh my God, I'm seeing the devil. It's a fallen angel. What? I'm screwed. And some dude one of the guys that was there went crazy and tried to drive us into a lake that night. My brother saw weird red eyes all in the woods, and we were all partying and being stupid. And I didn't do drugs at all until my dad died. He told me, if you ever do drugs, I'll kill you. And he would have. So I never did. But when he died, for a few years, it was like Scarface, albino Scarface. Not that intense, though, probably. But anyway, there's another guy I interviewed he used to be in that Process Church, Timothy Wiley, and he had some strange ideas about fallen angels getting on paths of redemption, or like changing, I guess, from their so-called stereotypical evil, the Christian view of them, that somehow they're here to help humanity and things like that. So that's what interests me about this a lot. Like when we say the dark man, the Christian view is to blame him for every fart, wind, and nary that ever happened since the edge of time. And I guess I'm wanting to know, what is his purpose? And surely it's just not sinister, pure evil like he's portrayed by so many, by Christianity. Is there any touch of that, though? I mean, there's a lot of questions, and wherever you want to start, I know it's
sure. Well, just to touch on your your point about having traumatic events in your life, and then you started seeing stuff. So one thing that's consistent around things like jinn possession, and indeed kind of like fairies getting into people's lives, and indeed things like the Dark Man as well, is a trauma can trigger this kind of stuff, because it can create a crack in the etheric body through which things can get in or start communicating. Excuse me. So, in answer to the question, is the Dark Man's purpose, as laid out in Abrahamic faith, to torment humanity, to kind of stick a finger in the eye of God? No, I don't believe that's the case at all. I would argue that the Dark Man, in various form, predates Christianity. This is an ancient current. In terms of the purpose, only the Dark Man knows that. But what we can kind of ascertain is from people's experiences and what we're told in the folklore. And I'd say from people's experiences, certainly the people that I've interviewed for this, he's an initiator into magic, an initiator into witchcraft more specifically. That if somebody has a Dark Man experience or that come into their life, that may be a calling into becoming a witch. That may be kind of an initiation / kind of activation experience. But the idea of it being evil is, in my opinion, it is kind of wrapped up in that whole kind of like Christian and Muslim idea that anything outside of their faith, that anything that isn't a Christian, anything that isn't a Muslim from a spirit perspective, because within Islam, the jinn, which you could kind of broadly say as a blanket term for fairy type beings, demonic type beings, some of those are determined to be Muslim, right? So, and through that prism, they're seen as the kind of the quote unquote good ones. Some are more ambiguous and some are downright evil. I would say that's a vein of understanding that kind of permeates most Abrahamic views of beings that sit outside their belief system. So when we look at the folklore, we see the Dark Man as interceptor. He interrupts a journey. And when he interrupts a journey, he asks questions of the individuals whose journey he's interrupted. And often these are kind of lessons in terms of reminding you that you're going to die. So what do you stand for? What does your life mean? Are you on a path that has value to you? There's one story I talk about in the book of a young man called Jemmy Nolan, who's going to the market to sell his cows, and he falls asleep under a tree. And when he wakes up, he's in the presence of this dark being, dark man type figure, who takes him to his kind of his fine mansion, and when they're there, Jemmy is given a like a velvet suit, and he dances with all these beautiful women and enjoys the sumptuous food and the fabulous wine. He's having a great time. And then it's time to entertain the Lord, who is the man who brought him there. And the Lord asks him, "Do you have a story to tell?" And he's like, "No, I don't have any stories." And he's immediately dragged out of the hall, taken out to an open grave by these impossibly strong men. He can't get away from them. And they throw him in the hole, and they're about to bury him alive, but he manages to grab a hazel stick and hit them with the hazel stick, and that breaks the fairy magic. And they bring him back in. And then he's asked again, "Do you have a story to tell?" He's like, yes, I have a story to tell. Because he's almost lost his life. So now his view of what is important to him, that has changed, right? So him having no story to tell is analogous to having no depth, right? That he's maybe wasting his life, right? So, and these kind of moral conundrums are often come up in these tales around the Dark Man, so it's not it's evil. It puts you through extremely terrifying scenarios, and the purpose of those, not always, but sometimes, seems to be to create a shock in you, to make you question your life's path.
And who are some of the people? I mean, not people, the gods. I know Coyote comes to mind a lot, and because I know that's kind of what he does too, in shamanism. And then Loki,
trickster archetype.
Who are some of these trickster archetypes, like he says, who fit into the mold of the Dark Man throughout history that let's talk about as cultures or different cultures? Some of the big ones.
Well, I mean, Loki is probably the most famous. Hermes is the same. But the thing about this is that, like, if we go through the names, like, you've got like numerous avatars for this in this archetype, for this current. It's like you got the Devil, Old Scratch, Master Leonard, the Black Man, the Dark Rider, the Old One, the Master.
Papa Legba, that's one that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And Hermes would be one as well.
Are you talking Hermes, the messenger of the gods, or Hermes Trismegistus, or are they both the same?
No, they're not the same. So I'm talking about Hermes the god.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hermes the god is part of the Greek pantheon. Mercury is the Roman equivalent. When Hermes is born, he steals his brother's Apollo's cattle, and like does things like makes footprints go backwards to try and confuse them. When he's confronted about this, and he's still an infant, he lies through his teeth, just absolutely kind of just totally fibbing away, to the point where Zeus finds this hilarious, but in recompense for this, he makes the lyre and gives it to Apollo as an apology for, and in exchange for stealing his cattle. But the interesting thing about Hermes is he is also a psychopomp, so he leads the souls of the dead to the underworld, and the Dark Man very much has that behavior as well. He also holds a caduceus, the wand with the snakes plaiting up.
double entwined snakes.
Yes. And in the earlier versions of this, it's actually just a horned rod. So it's like it's a rod with a split 2 horns on it, which is pretty much identical to the witch's stang, which is the type of staff the witches, which to this day use in part of their practice, which I find quite interesting. So I think there's an overlap there, and again you see it in the behavior. Hermes is also kind of the lord of boundaries. So the name Hermes is derived from a herm, which is basically a pile of stones that would denote a boundary. One of his other titles is Hermes the Thief. So he's very much trickster, but he's also got these psychopompic qualities as well.
You also mentioned one of my favorite archetypes, which shows up a lot. I don't think it's just associated with Darkman archetype itself, many of them, but the staff. In ancient lore, the staff had many, many magical qualities, and Moses was able to turn his to and from a snake. Some were said to have, cast spells out of them. The archetype of not Merlin, what's his name from Lord of the Rings? Oh God, Gandalf. Sorry, when you get old, your brain goes with it. But they all have these magical pieces of wood, and interesting, just real historical lore about the staves that we used as humans for both weapons and farming tools. In China, the long staff or bow staff was originally called gun, Gun, because it was considered the most powerful staff weapon of the Chinese weapons, and that includes the nunchaku, by the way. And then later, years and years later, they invent gunpowder, and then somewhere in Europe they invent the first arquebus and firearms, and that became gun, Gun. So, and it's made out of mostly half and half wood and metal. So it again is a staff. There's wood on them usually. Now they have plastic. But I just thought that was an interesting thing that the ancient word for the most powerful weapon was gun, and it was a stick. And today, one of the most powerful weapons is called a gun, and it's usually a stick with a metal rod that shoots a very powerful pellet. I don't know if that helps in any of the lore of the Darkman, but I've studied weapons, and I just found that just historically very interesting.
But it is, I love the way words evolve. It's always there's always an interesting story with some of these words.
Oh gosh, yeah, the history of words is very cool.
Absolutely.
And definitely, I like that you have a lot of people talking about their experiences. A lot of big people. I was reading through the blurbs, and I'd interviewed at least 3 or 4 of those people, which was cool. I've even had Megan Rose on before with cool. my co-hosts, several women, and it got crazy that her book is definitely a wild book about you've seen the book, her book and everything, her newest, but so. What can you tell us about some of the people in your book and maybe some experiences that you would like to share that they've spoke about with this, energy?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this is that there's a huge amount of variation in it. So one of the people I interviewed is a hereditary witch called Shuli Porter, who's been seeing the Darkman since she was a little girl. Also spoke to Megan, and how he came into her life as Gwyneth Nud, who is the kind of a Welsh psychopomp, who was described as he's like a jet black but with a white face. And you see these kind of contrasting, kind of polarizing elements to the appearance, where they'll be described as black, but will have a shining aspect to them. And he's associated with Glastonbury tour. Now, there's one story, an interview in the book as well with a lady called Jessica, and she went up Glastonbury tour at 3 a.m. and saw a 12-foot black specter up there, and who had a kind of a trickster nature to him. It's like a this 2D phantom. But she said it was immense, and it gave off a real predatory vibe, and asked her for a cup of tea and then for a cigarette. And wow. that kind of changed her view on the world. And that's the thing, when these experiences first happen, particularly if it's a new thing, it shatters one's view of the world. It's massively transformative. I mean, the thing about kind of a trickster spirit, a trickster energy, is it's a disrupting, transforming force. Something new evolves out of the experience. And then multiple magicians who work with the Dark Man, who recognize the primal nature, about how old this is. And one really interesting thing is there's a witch called Elise Ursa, and over a 2-week period, she created a tarot deck, or the trump cards from a tarot deck, more specifically, and it just kind of came rushing out of her. She was really kind of possessed by this need to create these cards, these pieces of art, and at the same time, she was having this intense dreams of a dark man standing in her room, just instructing her on the creation of these cards. And that's a real thing here. There is a creative bend to this experience as well. So one of the things I say in the opening passage of the book is, I said, the children of the Dark Man are witches and storytellers. So the witchcraft experience is probably more intense and certainly more it's more occult and esoteric, overtly. But the experience of people who are creating stuff is more kind of, I term it as kind of daimonic. The dark current is working through their personal daimons to drive them to create whatever that might be, music, stories, art, and what have you.
Did that particular tarot deck ever come to retail, like the one you were talking about? Did it ever come to
Jeffrey?
Yeah. It's I don't know if she's still selling them. But the interesting thing about Elise, and it's actually quite important for the book, because it was one of those kind of first initial dominoes that went over that kind of brought me into this, into creating this project, is in one of her dreams, there was a woman standing over her, almost dressed like a widow, who was crying and sobbing, and she was repeating a name, an Irish name. She initially, at least, thought it was the Morrigan or one of these dark goddesses, but she was repeating a name, and she was trying to Google it afterwards. But again, being an Irish name, spelt nothing like it sounded. But she kind of mentioned it to me, and I was like, "That's Siva, the Sive, that name." And that turned out to be a clue to the Dark Man and how he appeared in Irish folklore, because Siva is the name of Fionn McCool's fairy wife, who was hunted by a figure called the Black Magician of the Men of Gods, or the Dark Men of the She. And the She is the Irish word for fairy. And
who was the Morrigan? The Morrigan that came to mind. I know I have a book about that. The Morrigan. Yeah. Does that tie into it at all? That's like fairy.
No, it's not the Morrigan. The Morrigan is a very, very powerful a war goddess, a death goddess.
Oh, okay.
But it's not the same. Not the same being. So that led me to kind of go through the earliest collections of what are called the Fenian cycle about Fionn McCool, and this goes back to, the linguistic evidence of the manuscripts take us back to the 12th century. So we're getting into kind of late monastic Ireland, early medieval, or medieval rather, and who's there but a figure called, the black magician of the men of God, and the men of God is a reference to the Tuatha De Danann, who were these kind of godlike beings that
giants also, weren't they?
And not necessarily the overtly. Some of them had giant qualities, like the Dagda would be kind of an immense man, you know. But that goes way back to the kind of the Book of Invasions, talking about the Tua and kind of what they brought to Ireland and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. But
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
In the Fenian stories, Saiva is Fionn first meets her when she's in the form of a deer. So she's been shapeshifted into an animal by the Dark Man, and it's only within the confines of Fionn's fort that she turns back into this fairy woman, this stunningly beautiful fairy woman. And you find the theme of fairy woman being transformed and shifted into a deer several times in Irish mythology, and it's related to a powerful figure that always has black in its name, or an evil spirit. So that's what I'm saying. The theme comes up again. There's consistencies, even in this kind of like, you know, you could say a narrow vein that is just Irish mythology. We have this theme come up again and again.
And I want to ask one more thing, and then Christina has a question. One thing that I have an intense interest in is Vlad the Impaler, and mostly the historical side. And of course, you know, some of the Dracula stuff's interesting. Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola and all that was great and everything. But we've had a few shows about that, and it's not the easiest thing to find guests for. But one thing that I came across, and I was wondering if you've ever come across this, and if you haven't, it's fine. But there was something I came across about scholomance, like some dark art school where something to do with Vlad the Impaler in Transylvania, where the devil's there to teach like the black arts, and like a certain amount of people enter, but they have to leave one behind. Like there was some weird stuff on some kind of, I know that term is from Vlad the Impaler somehow, but has anything like that ever come up in your studies or anything?
Could you repeat the term again?
Scholomance, like I think it's SCHOLOMANCE. It's supposed to be like a dark arts mystery school. Let me see what I can find on it really quick. Vlad the Impaler. I know I've asked Don Webb about it and stuff like that, and Stephen Flowers, but I can't remember. But I was mostly bringing it up because if you never have, you know, it's interesting. It's definitely kind of weird. Maybe something you want to research in the future or something. It's weird because right now I'm trying to find stuff on it and nothing's coming up about it, because I could swore I've been on here before and like lots of crap about it came up. But it's supposed to be like some kind of superstitious story about a dark arts mystery school and Vlad the Impaler and Dracula, and the devil runs it, and like a certain amount of people go there, and one has to be left behind. But Google may be a better place, but there's nothing coming up on Microsoft right now.
I got this from just on one quick Yahoo search. Is in Blizzard Entertainment's World of Warcraft, the Scholomance is a ruined castle held by undead forces whose cellars and crypts are now used to train necromancers and create undead monsters.
Now, I have some stuff that came up. I have some stuff from Google AI Overview. According to some sources, Count Dracula from wait, that don't make any sense because now it's talking about the fiction. Somehow a lot of the
Wikipedia page on it.
Yeah, and yeah, there sure is. You can just look at that. But yeah, there's stuff about it. I don't know the roots of it, but it says folklore and stuff like that. And then, of course, you got to be careful because there's a lot of fiction crap that pops up. There's a whole Reddit discussing it, I just see here. But it's pretty interesting for sure. It's a weird thing that I've come across. I'm always trying to gain more knowledge about it, but maybe something you want to look into in the future that might be interesting.
Cool. Thank you.
Definitely weird.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like it.
But the Vlad the Impaler story is definitely very interesting on many different levels. I mean, they called him Dragon. His name was Dragon. Definitely an interesting character. But
Dracula is the Romanian word for dragon.
Yeah. Well, Christina has a question. Go ahead.
Well, mostly just was gonna say it was interesting looking at your book because Jeffrey and I both come from very similar backgrounds, I believe. Anyway, religiously, right. I was raised Pentecostal Christian, and so I would say was actually sadly fear-based into a lot of, where you didn't want to look into certain things because that meant you were going to go to hell, and that's where the devil is and so on. But mostly having to go through literal hell myself all my life and realizing being raised like that, the more fear-based you have put on you. I think as a healer, actually, as a nurse going into that, I wanted to face my fears and chase them, if anything. So I've often been crazy. That's probably why I met Jeffrey to begin with. And just learning and seeing so much in my personal life, going back to my earliest memories and feeling very afraid because I could see things, and I would be asking everyone in my life that I thought knew all the spiritual things and whatnot, what is going on? And they're pretty much telling me it's the devil and taking me to church and putting oil on me and rebuking the devil out of me. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So I always felt like I would say afraid of being a witch and or going to hell. And I've been going through hell all my life on my own in ways. So basically having to face my fears, just like he was saying as well, shamanically or whatever you want to say, going through near-death experiences and so on, and literally having to face fears. I have seen things all my life that I was scared I was going to get locked up for. But more and more, it's like those gifts are coming back, and the more I'm open to it and not being afraid of it, and often going into nature and seeing spiritual animals or whatever you want to say. I keep having weird things with owls, for example, at night. And I've been running from Lilith or whatever that is. And like these things that feel like they're always chasing me and trying to get me to be a part of it. So more and more trying to say, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Because I'm so tired of running away and saying, why is this happening to me, and being scared, like seeing Dogman, for example, more and more, and things that are like, what is this? And what do you want me to do with it? And reading that little bit of things on your book and going, oh my gosh, like having my mind opening up more and more and not feeling actually afraid, which is nice for the first time in 43 years. But just seeing these crazy things like Crossroads in my life, like literally I had my whole life fall apart. I almost died, sadly, in 2021.
Right.
And I was 40 years old that year. It's like all these things that are very crazy real. I'm a Virgo, so I've always felt connected to Hermes and things you're talking about, where again, my father especially would be like, that's bad. You're not supposed to even talk about these things. So learning again, like, no, it's actually empowering and good to talk about these things and not feel so afraid of it. And running into actual people in my life that I would say weren't people. It was weird experiences, like again, Papa Legba kind of characters, just in the last couple years, where it's like I didn't go looking for this and it's happening, and it was helpful. It was like I didn't go looking for it, and they're there and they're helping me get where I need to get, like a weird video game, but it's real and it's happening, and trying to figure out what in the heck is going on in the world. Again, trying not to be afraid of the devil. I've even told him before I met him, I was like, I used to pray weirdly to God and say, whatever it is that's bad out there, isn't there a way we all can work together for something good? Like, why are we fighting each other? Why is there always something that's bad and then something that's good, and fighting, like politics, sadly, and religion, often just going in circles of insanity. Basically even told him, I was like, hey, even in the Bible, again, Job, like I was taught about Job, and he was tested by the devil, literally. And so like realizing, even reading little bits of your book, like, hello, that's like basically, yes, making painful decisions through what basically would have killed you. Like I told him, like, I swear I saw Anubis before at a crossroads when I was about to give up hope. And, I was praying to God for help, and something stepped in that I still don't understand with the dog thing. But just going, maybe that's the dark man, so it does scare me at the same time, because I told him, like anything, a gun, a Ouija board, any kind of tool, it's like, I want to learn how to do what I should be with this and not be a puppet, basically, for the wrong, whatever that is. Because I was raised very cultish, very, brainwashed to be afraid of everything. So basically just realizing, even with Job, if that story is not real or whatever, it's based on something. The devil tested him, basically, and in the end went through all that and got blessed more. It's, I think, 7 times or something. But just seeing so many correlations and stories throughout history and different cultures all around the world, and how many stories are very similar, and also giving me hope, which is awesome in ways, somehow, through the darkness. But I know, again, isn't darkness just pretty much all of the colors combined? And we're like, if that makes sense, the illusion of all the lights, basically. You don't have light if you don't have darkness. So
exactly, learning
to embrace it somehow through the madness of the world.
Exactly. It's interesting that you mention Dogman, because we were discussing Hermes briefly, and there's an amalgamation of Hermes and Anubis called Hermanubis, which is a dog-headed version of Hermes.
See, and I did not know anything about this, so it's just so cool, scary but cool.
And there's another. I mean, there's another element to this, which is when I mentioned the composite being. This is the being that's part human and part something else, something wild. So the most famous of this would be like things like the Horned Man. So something like Pan, where the bottom of the body is like a hoofed animal, and with horns, then it's a human part as well. But these kind of terianthropic figures that are amalgamated of different animals, this is a common enough thing. The witches describe exactly the same thing. So the Scottish witches in Britain, the kind of the more robust corpus of records is based in Scotland, and most research has been done into that. But the account of Isabel Gowdy, she talks about the devil as a great black rough man, and sometimes he would have boots or shoes on his feet, but sometimes his feet are forked and cloven, and sometimes he would be in the form of a roe deer. So it's the inverse of what I described in the Irish folklore, which is the inversion. When we get into this stuff, inversion is representation, which is to quote Joshua Cutchin. But they would have sometimes he would appear in the form of a dog, a black dog. That's a consistent theme as well. You have exactly the same thing in the kind of the broader sense of the Islamic world, where jinn will appear as black dogs.
And I know this thing is kind of like, and then the devil being God's hitman. You hear people say things like that and stuff. There's so many different weird stories, but the Job story is definitely a bizarre one that's just so weird. Like, we're going to slaughter all your kids. They're dead, but here's some new ones. Just forget about those old ones. Maybe it's the same spirits and new bodies, maybe, but still just bizarre, And then one thing, not to get into this too heavily, I see a lot of the tarot people saying Capricorn is the devil, and I'm a Capricorn. I'm like, oh, geez, come on now, I'm the devil. Like, a lot of people see the devil as the red cartoon, but I see a lot of images of Sauron and stuff come up, which that's another, that guy was Christian and fictionalized it, another version of that in fiction, kind of, in a lot of ways. But the idea that this force works with a creator. One of the weirdest things I'm remembering right now, for some reason, that Stephen Flowers said was, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but it's something that was definitely weird to think about. He said something like Jehovah is Thor. I was like, what? That was they got into it.
Is Thor?
Yeah, like he was just saying how these different, not saying I agree with that, because obviously I don't know. I don't hang out with Jehovah and Thor all the time. But it's just one of those weird things where these things overlap in cultures. Like, from Norse has little dwarf people, Native American has little dwarf people, the overlap. And I mean, who's to say it isn't the same energy? I don't know. Go interview Jehovah or Thor. I don't know. I mean, but it was a weird thing. He's pretty respectable, so it's something to think about, is all I'm saying. But how all these things connect, over different cultures. And the Dark Man, of course, is in a lot of these, so many different cultures. But so what else comes up that you'd like to discuss? That some of your favorite things to talk about with all of this?
Well, just before we move on, the point you made about Capricorn is interesting here as well, because the symbolism of horns on statues can often indicate or refer to the idea of like received knowledge that is tied to Capricorn and what it represents. So there's statues of Moses and depicting Moses with horns, and that comes up more frequently than you'd think.
I think also he's associated with the ram's horn as well at some point.
Correct.
And I think there are some depictions that maybe my art history is off, but I think there have been some depictions of him carrying a staff with a ram's horn at the top of it.
And the Capricorn, just the Capricorn story I've researched a lot, and it's definitely a weird story that, and I don't know how easy this is to find, but somewhere I read that it's basically Pan was caught masturbating by the gods and thrown into the Nile River and given a serpentine tail as punishment. And it's the Saturn connection is definitely, a lot of people, the way they view Saturn and occult and stuff. But it's a weird story. That's just where the hell did it come from?
In the Greek myths, I mean, there's some just whacked out stuff. Period.
Yeah, there definitely is. Well, I mean, there's a massive Saturnian connection to the Dark Man. I'd say in his more austere form, there is a Saturnian Dark Man. There's a mercurial one as well, for sure. That would be the more trickster side of things. But the more terrifying version of it is definitely, in my opinion, the Saturnian one. So these things they all overlap wildly, and this is why it's we have to kind of resist the temptation to try and kind of like that is it and label it and categorize it, because to do so is a fool's errand. We don't have the language to do it. Like language isn't capable of articulately describing and defining what this is.
Well, one of the weird things about when I told you about testicular cancer, I had not to get into this because it's kind of goofy. I actually talked about this with Nick Redfern. It was a weird conversation, though, Pan situation in Capricorn. But basically, when I was younger, I was caught by family members doing self-pleasuring, and it got out to my school, and a lot of kids and teachers made fun of me. And the year later, I got testicular cancer. So there's something about that archetype, that story that even happened to me personally. That's weird. Yeah. So there's definitely weird stuff with Saturn. I know in the occult, like some people do kind of consider Saturn Satan in occult circles, don't they? And there's weird Hitler stuff with Saturn that was really freaking weird, like worship or something. There's a lot of weirdness for sure with it.
I mean, there's a hell of a lot of strangeness around Saturn. There's the whole kind of idea of the cult of the black cube.
Yeah. What? Just real quick, that cult of the black cube. If you could summarize a little bit about that, why that's weird to me, and I've seen stuff about it, but my mind, I don't remember much that I retained about it. But if you want to maybe tell us a little bit about it, but what's weird about that story and gave me chills is at one point I saw those weird cloaked beings with a friend. And they had a little cube in front of them, like a black box. And a black cat jumped towards them and they vanished. And then later I found that black cat dead. And but what about the black cube thing? You don't have to go into it forever.
Well, I mean, I'm not like particularly well versed in it, but like what you have is a consistency of symbols. And again, this is where the point I made about language isn't sufficient to describe these ideas in their entirety. It's just it doesn't have the full range of expression that's required. So this is why so much of these kind of like archaic and arcane ideas are embedded in symbolism, and embedded in metaphor within story. But the cult of the black cube. Some of the strange elements from this is the black cube turns up as a central motif within Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. So within Islam, at Mecca, you have the Kaaba, the black cube that Muslim pilgrims go at least once in their life, go to Mecca, and then they go around the Kaaba like rings of Saturn. They circle it. And then within Judaism, and don't ask me the name of the particular kind of items involved, but there's the cube kept on the forehead. And then I believe that contains particular scrolls. And the same kind of cube that's wrapped around in concentric circles around the arm, again, replicating circles, like one could say the rings of Saturn. And you take a crucifix, and if you imagine the crucifix with the arms folded in, and then the head folded in, and then the base folded in twice, you get into a cube shape. So this is where you've got that kind of recurrent theme that comes up again and again and again. Weirdly, when I think it's the north pole of Saturn when it's observed from above. It has a kind of a hexagon, and if you extrapolate that looks like a cube. That's as far as the detail I have. That's kind of like my YouTube research.
Yeah, I have to research it some more. It's definitely weird. If you put the little cloak bean story with it, it gets weirder for sure. But definitely, the little cloak beans, I don't know what they were. But it kind of reminded me of skinny Jawas, but you couldn't see their faces.
Sure.
But one of the things that movie Phantasm kind of creeps me out about those.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness in that. All those movies. Yeah, I love those for sure. But so what is the final outcome of this? When you finally croak, do you have to go off with this being for eternity to his abysmal abyss? What do you think about these kind of things? Is he going to meet you and say, "Hey, you're coming with me, buddy"?
Well, there's definitely a psychopomp element to it. Now, on one of the accounts in the book, like my friend Shuli, she's died a number of times. She was born dead. She's born with the umbilical cord around her neck. Had to be resuscitated. But she had she kind of, I think she almost died in the operating table. And he appeared and, asked her if she wanted to go. And brought her down into a place, this kind of within a cave with this vast body of black water within it with a faint greenish hue, and lay her in there and healed her. And this place, quite a few witches have been to, and it's, the term I use for it is the dark womb. So it's this kind of cold furnace of creation, where the void, essentially, where all things come from. And he's the guardian of the void that brings things into the world as well. There's a couple of things that I'd like to touch on that may be helpful for people listening.
Sure.
And it gets into the kind of symbolic value of things, or the symbolic meaning of things, rather. So, firstly, we have the composite being, right? So, this being that is made up of different animals. Most famous, the famous depiction of the devil with the kind of the hind legs of a deer and the horns and what have you. This is this entity demonstrating that we are not above nature, we are alongside it, right? So we are part of nature, and it's a face of nature. So it's the creative, conscious face of nature displaying itself, showing it that this is a manifestation of life. Sometimes that's terrifying, because sometimes nature is terrifying. The whole idea of kind of like nature being kind of this kind of, bountiful kind of, earth goddess that's just only the giver of life is just simply not realistic. That's one side of it. The other side of it is the taker of life. You know, creation, when an island's created from a volcanic blast, it's an extremely violent thing. So it's understanding that nature has a vicious face to it as well. That's encapsulated in this composite being, but it's showing part man and part animal, and it's reminding us that we are part of the animal world. We are part of nature. Now that's in direct opposition to Christian ideas like the quote in the Bible of, I've given you the animals and plants of the world to use, you know, which separates us from nature and turns nature into something that is there to be exploited and utilized.
As a tool, yes, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. So I think the Dark Man reminds us of our own primal nature, you know. And I'm not saying that in like, you know, kind of a hippy dippy way. It's still.
Well, no, I mean, it's an interesting point you bring up. I mean, years and years ago in the 50s, 1957, several, you know, earth scientists and oceanographers got together and they started the Bathyscaphe project, and they named their ship the Trieste. And there were two halves of thought in the group that were sending these men down to the bottom of the ocean. One half thought, we're not going to find anything. The water's too much like ammonia. The pressures are too great. There's no light, no heat, no, you know, nothing. There's nothing there that life can support itself with. And the other half said, oh, we'll find something small, maybe like a you know, bacteria or some virology, something. We'll find some kind of life down there, but maybe not necessarily, you know, maybe one-celled life they were expecting, that kind of thing.
Right.
When they get down there, they find a bony fish, very much like a sole or a flounder up here in our normal depths, that kicked up so much silt they had to go back up because they couldn't see anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what you know, religious leaders and people of the past would think had they known about those creatures that are living basically in poison at the ends of these volcanic vents, that if we were to go down there and drink that water, it would kill us almost immediately. With all the poisons that are in there coming from those vents. But yet there are thriving creatures who are feeding off of these chemicals in the water. They have no light. They have the greatest amount of pressure you can imagine on their bodies. I would think most of those creatures, when they bring them up here, they have like moments to take good photographs of them before their bodies just disintegrate because they implode upon themselves.
Right.
You know, so what would the mentality of, say, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, what would they think of that? That would be the devil's work, I would think.
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's literally an alien world. Yeah.
It's exactly. I mean, it's all in our world, but it is 100% alien to the type of life that we expect. And you know, what is this entity we're talking about? Is it a physical thing? Is it an alien creature from another planet that just comes here and has that trickster mentality, likes to mess with our heads? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. What I want to say is, you know, I think there's some truths in Christianity, but they also seem like they hijacked a lot of stuff and put their own fresh paint of coat on it. And
they edited the Bible.
But yeah, I know there's a lot of manipulation in it, and I know there's a lot of events that were weather events or just cosmic events of things being destroyed, and they're like, oh, it's God, yada yada yada. But my thing is, where why I think there's some truth in it, and then of course there's a lot of craziness in it. I've seen a lot of abuse in my family from people that were in churches, preachers. And I'm not going to get into it, but my mom and her sisters, they were molested by their own grandfather who was a preacher. So I'm hesitant with any of it. But I do, based on my own personal experiences, think there's some force of good and light or whatever the F you want to call it. And I don't think the dark man may work for it or be part of it as well. I don't know. But my point is, one of the biggest things I've seen is one time I was inside my home and the Bible was on some DVD that I was playing on some stupid, meditation watchword thing. Something goes in my head. I was completely sober, no nicotine, no weed, no alcohol, no anything. I went out. Something told me to go outside and look in the sky. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. I've had that happen a few times, and sometimes I'm like, no, it's freezing out there, but I guess I'll go and I'll see something. That's weird. But this particular time, it was in broad daylight. Went outside, turned towards my house, and saw two people made of light leave my house as if they were in it, came out through the roof and flew into the heavens. And it was humanoid shaped, light. So there's something about consciousness, nirvana. You can call it the force from Star Wars. I don't care. You can call it Bob. You can call it Christ consciousness. There's something that's good. And then, of course, good and bad are, reduced terms that could mean so many different things. But I think there's something that I know one time I was having trouble getting interviews and I said a prayer and had a UFO encounter. And then shortly after that, it ended up on the radio. Then the next thing you know, I was on the phone with Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist, famous ufologist, and was going to be interviewing him. And it was like something helped me get an interview. I don't know if it was ET, but something helped me start hooking up with people like Stanton Friedman, Lloyd Pye, and just these people that I used to see in documentaries that I never watching documentaries. And next thing you know, I'm interviewing them. So there's some kind of force, and that dark man may be an agent of, like Coyote, going to put you through some crap, but in the end, you'll be smiling and better off probably. So I understand that for sure. But I know we're getting to about an hour and 20 minutes, or do you need to start heading out, or do you want to go a little bit longer? How comfortable, or whatever you're comfortable with?
I'd like to talk to two areas.
Okay.
And then maybe I can go to bed.
Okay, I know. I understand.
But to your point there about kind of like going through some stuff and experiencing things, and then kind of this show comes out of it, right? So you get a life that's closer to what's in your heart, what you're drawn to. Couldn't get an interviews, but then you could. Or you're in that position where you're talking to people who's, you may have followed them for years, read their words, read their books, heard them on other shows, and then you're creating something with them, be it a show or whatever. It's sometimes these experiences make us nodes of enchantment. They move us into positions where we are amplifying their signal, their current, through our creativity. And this is what you're doing now. You're creating this show. You've created this, and it is in itself a node of enchantment. For all the listeners who are absorbing ideas from the different shows that you put out, the different people you interview, it amplifies the strange. It amplifies people's awareness of it existing. And that's the potency of it. So when we talk about the idea of creativity and how the dark man in one of his ways plays out in our stories, plays out in our art, plays out in our initiatives, like this is an example of it. We're in one. We're in an example of that, how this plays out. And once you realize that you become a node of enchantment, it's an extraordinary thing. It also makes you realize how little you have in terms of free will, in terms of decision, and how manipulated we can be by these external forces. But they want their stories to be told. That's why my book is called Song of the Dark Man. That is literally why. It's the song to be sung. Now, the other bit, kind of lurching wildly to a different a different point, is we have the themes of black and white, right? Nature and civility, human and other, come up all the time with the dark man stuff, where it's constantly pointing towards a binary, right? Good and evil, black and white, right? It's talking about this all the time. It's inflecting it and it's displaying it in terms of how it's perceived. So that's one of the reasons that like the black appearance or the black name comes up again and again, right? But you have this strange element to it where things like Gwyn ap Nudd, who will have a black body but a white face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have then, Lucifer, who's the fallen angel. It's like the dark one, but he's the shining one.
Yeah.
Right. The light, the fallen angel who carries the light of illumination. Right. Out of the darkness comes the light. Yeah. That motif comes up again and again. In the story I told you about of Fionn McCool and his fairy wife, Siva, yeah, who is pursued by the dark man, and is referred to as the Black Magician of the Men of God, and the Dark Man of the Sidhe, the Dark Man of the Fairies. Fionn literally means fair-haired, like white or fair-haired.
Right.
So you've got the opposer, the black and the white. These are the opposing forces that dance, the cosmic forces that dance together that create the world. So it's reminding us of this binary. Yet, when you go to the story, and particularly that motif of like the light is within the dark, as in Gwyn ap Nudd, the black being with the white face, or Lucifer, the dark one, yet the shining one. It's describing to us a non-dualistic reality, right? So the ideas of good and evil, light and dark, are essentially from the same singularity beyond here, right? And it's a deep idea, and it's a tough one to get your head around, because we are constantly in this framework. We live in a world of oppositions. It doesn't exist in this world, but that's what the motif of the dark man is telling us. Which is why the idea of like, well, is this the devil who's just there to mess with us, and and it's just evil, and that's it. That's where that falls down. It's because without that challenge, we can't know the opposite. We don't know the darkness. We can't know the light. And that, I think, leads you into kind of what the meaning is. But equally, that's a human being describing something that's way beyond a human being.
And then who's to know if some of these forces were pure evil at first and then got on a different path where they're still kind of, smartasses or whatever, but kind of helping people too on some level, Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, there's just so many different things. Try to get into that Paradise Lost and the fall story with Michael and Lucifer. And a lot of that's rooted in fiction mostly, in the, revelation, I guess, and I try to figure out what other cultures that ties into. I don't know if there's other cultures that have a similar. I know like Tiamat and all that. We've had Peter Levenda on about the Necronomicon and Simon and all that stuff. And, there's that story of Tiamat and Marduk. That's kind of like a similar paradise, I guess, sort of, kind of like a fall story. And so it's just there's so many ways to look at it, but ignorance is not the way to look at it. That's for sure. That's just going to leave you. This is going to leave you scared shitless somewhere. And I've been there. But definitely, go ahead.
And that's a normal reaction. It's frightening stuff. And like you've described, you come from a Christian background. I was raised Catholic. It's not like the devil got great press in the Catholicism either.
Also,
so it's like, and that doesn't wash off.
Yeah, it's there. It's always
I went to school in grade school. It was a private school. And I was taught by nuns and priests.
Yeah.
And back then in the 70s, they had corporal punishment, what they called in the schools back then, even in the public schools, so they could smack you if you got out of line. So I was a class clown. So needless to say, I got hit with a ruler very frequently.
Yeah.
By men of the cloth and women of the cloth. So.
That all sounds very familiar.
I came across one weird story once. It might have been in DJ Conway's Lord of Light and Shadow, some kind of book like that. But there's a weird story about like some kind of Wicker Man like ritual where they take a dude's like testicle and it's like an initiatory thing, and like really creepy. I need to find that again. But that whole archetype story with Pan is, and Pan and Capricorn and how that ties in Saturn. And it's just, there's so many ways to look at the dark man, phenomenon. And I've heard a lot about the black dogs in the UK, with Nick Redfern and stuff. And
the black show.
And then, of course, over here in America, we have the skinwalker thing that's really weird, and a lot of stuff with that's going on. So there's a lot, and I've even seen some of the black cat stuff here. I mean, black dogs and cat stuff here. Mm-hmm. But one last question, and we'll let you get to the Snoozeville, and hopefully I'll eat and get to Snoozeville at some point. But has the UFO subject ever come up with the dark man at all? Like any experiences, or like is he riding around in one? Like there's a lot of ways to tie that into different cultural things too as well.
It's a great question, and I spoke to Whitley Schreiber during the week, and he raised the same question, and kind of and in his view, he felt that these things were intertwined. But there's, of the kind of the whole kind of Jacques Vallée school that these types of entities just show you a mask, and your fairies or your aliens, and there is a crossover. When you like those kind of the pattern that I described, you could take several of those and apply them to aliens and alien abduction. Sex and sexual interest in human beings, shape shifting. The Interceptor, the kind of the broken journey with the missing hours is totally the description of that. What happens when people go to Fairyland? I was there for a year. You come back and a century's passed. So it's
Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah,
exactly. These things do kind of have an overlap, but there's a couple of points that I find particularly interesting. There is a woodcut from the 1700s of a horned black devil with a scythe, and for all intents and purposes making a crop circle.
Yeah, right? So I've seen that. Yeah,
that's an interesting one. And then the other point I would say to it, and this is pure conjecture now as well, but it's an interesting thread to pull. The way when we talk about kind of the Men in Black,
yes,
right, and they would appear and they would seem to have clothing that was kind of out of date by a couple of decades, or their car would be that kind of like have a very 1950s appearance, even though it was like the 70s, that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this a little bit, and one of the things that kind of I noted in the folklore is when things like the Banshee appears. The Banshee's never seen wearing jeans, or any kind of modern clothing. It's always from the previous century.
Wow. Okay. So at some point he's going to be wearing clothes we'd recognize.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, in fact, there's an account on a podcast called the Modern Fairy Sightings podcast, where a guy is describing a really weird experience he had by the Thames in London, where he met this extraordinarily beautiful woman, was talking to her. I said, like, she was strikingly beautiful, and they were kind of deducing that kind of like maybe it was a fairy experience, and then someone pulls up on a motorbike, head to toe, jet black clothing, black helmet, just kind of stares, doesn't interact. And the story of the lady who saw this dark figure at the top of Glastonbury Tor, when she initially saw him, she described him as looking like a biker, looking like an all in black biker. Orion Foxwood, he described the same thing, as they was doing a kind of a call to the dark man. A guy on a motorbike rolls by, jet head to toe in black, So I do think there are modern versions of this, but the kind of the point I was making about the Banshee is that there always seems to be that kind of slightly lack of nuanced perception of what would look normal to a human, and and that might be how they're experiencing time. There could be like far vast arcs of time. You know, what's the difference between the 50s and the 70s if you're 1,000 years old? You know, it's you know, I look at what 20-year-old people wear now, and it's imperceptible to me.
Yeah.
You know.
And what's next for you book wise? What are you going to tackle next? Is there anything you can talk about before you depart? Is that what's next, man? This is a big one. What's next?
I'm not 100% sure. I have a couple of ideas. So I used to be a travel photographer, and I've done some kind of essays around some of the essays, photographic essays that I shot, like, you know, things associated with the Jinn or the Agori sect. So maybe kind of do some sort of like kind of book around photography and those those adventures. Equally, there's two of the subjects that kind of interest me, and I'm thinking of maybe writing something on the parallels between the fairy world and the Jinn world.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
that'd be interesting. And there's also this kind of masked play tradition that exists across Europe, which I think is a remnant of pagan beliefs. So I'm interested in kind of pulling the thread on that. Some very, very weird mask stuff goes on, and it to me it has this. I'm just get a vibe off it that there's something to it that is deeper, but that's just an instinctual thing. I'll have to do a bit more research.
I have a lot of masks too of like different they're kind of like those Ben Cooper old Halloween masks from this place called Retro Go-Go, but they're creepy like Frankenstein. Like
they're huge too.
Something about mask is a good one for sure. But I just want to say we appreciate it so much. What a Halloween show. It's definitely the ultimate episode for Halloween, no doubt about that. And we appreciate it so much. Do you have a link or anything, or a website or anything?
DarraghMason.com, or follow me at the Spirit Box podcast. I'm only on Instagram because I'm a grumpy person and I dislike social media.
What is your astrological thingy? Is it I'm curious. What is it? What's your sign? Taurus. Okay, Taurus. You're an Earth sign. All right, man. Well, keep us in the loop. It was a great show. I appreciate it so much. Thanks so much for the work you do, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great show.
Have a lovely evening.
All right, take care. Later. All right, everybody. You're listening to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans, and happy Halloween. We had Steve Ward for a Mothman Festival show to spark this off. And then we had the Quantum Physics show, Dr. Charles Liu. And then we had the Demon Portrait show that happened after the Doors show got canceled. I never wrote back. It was kind of weird. I don't understand that. His publicist is supposed to be inner tradition, supposed to knock on his door a little bit and see what's going on with that. But luckily we got a good show to replace it. That was weird and Halloween vibe. And then this one, man, that was good.
Yeah.
So many different ways to look at everything. And just that phenomenon of this being seems to be in every culture or every belief system on some level. And the fact that you have to see it from a coyote type perspective, that it's a shamanic initiator that uses fear to advance you in different levels is definitely very, very interesting. But happy Halloween. There's a black cat behind you. Looks like it's pooping.
No, it's an orange cat too. I have three of the kitties are in here. I got a laser mouse today. It's pointed at the cat and they chase it. So
those are fun.
They were trying to figure out where the laser disappeared to.
Looking under the door. It was cute.
Yeah. Well, actually, he's trying to get out because the new kitten is here. Let me see if I can get her. Oh yeah, she's right there.
Are you doing the JoJo show after this?
Yep. My Spider-Man Pez fell over.
Nice. Man, that one was a trip. That one. Just so many ways to think about all that.
This is the new kitten. That the old black kitten, he's a little mad about her being here.
Yeah, he looks a little pissed.
This is a she. She's a big fluffy thing.
Nice.
She's like my old one. She has one of these 4.5 foot long tails.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the Maine Coon?
Black cats have a interesting personality that's different from other cats, it seems like, for sure.
Well, the other black cat, his name is Hugh. He acts like a dog because we adopted him the same time we got the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll let the dog pick him up by his head and carry him around through the house.
We've been Edgar keeps snoring. Hopefully, he didn't hear.
Yeah, I was wondering, was that your dog? Like,
was it that bad? I tried to mute it.
Yeah, I hope he didn't think it was you snoring.
No, there he is.
Yeah, he's trying to get
Was
out.
it real loud? Was it bad during it?
No, not too bad.
Are you looking at the Edgar? Look, Jay.
Looks like you guys falling asleep.
Oh yeah, there he is. The little one. You want to get the laser? There we go. Yep. See, there goes the orange one. If you guys can see him.
Yeah.
He's losing it. I love turning it off. He's like, where did it go?
And just trying to do the December schedule. Usually take a few weeks off in December, so I'm working on all that stuff. But I have to reset. I'm going to be doing this another year. Losing count of how many years.
Let me let him out because he's making a lot of noise. Give me 1 second.
All righty. I'll say something in the email to him in case he heard a snoring dog. But like to see his photographs.
Yeah, he had mentioned the gin, and I wonder. I had meant to say something about if he knew anything about Sasquatch and if that had anything to do with that, or the Watchers. You know, the helpers.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him that too, but
I was hoping Jay would do it.
Yeah, I was hoping to, but he cut out too quick.
Yeah, he was starting to get sleepy, but I don't blame him.
Yeah, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning over there, I think.
Oh, yeah. But good interview, though. He just said he was talking to Whitley Strieber, Christopher Walken Communion.
Yeah. Oh, I know who he is.
He made some big circuits, apparently. He's been on some big shows if he's been on Strieber's show. So I figured he had. But definitely a good one. Want to get him on again sometime and look at his photography. United Kingdom representing for sure.
He didn't really get into the Agori and all that. I wanted to talk about, kind of reminds me of zombies and or some things that are like the necromancer again, all that weird stuff.
It's kind of like voodoo, heavy, India voodoo.
We'll have to get him on again. That was good.
Yeah, he talked about it a little bit, but not a lot. What have we been doing? We're trying to watch some Halloween stuff. We've been watching those American Horror Stories. Those are kind of good anthology, just 1 hour episodes that are different. Different stories every episode. There's the show American Horror Story, and then there's American Horror Stories, which is kind of like a Creep Show or Tales from the Crypt or Twilight Zone. It's just like separate episodes. But man, some of those are nuts in the new season. They had Michael Imperioli, the guy from Sopranos, the Christopher.
Okay, yeah.
He is in one. That was weird. And that particular one, his kid got killed, and I won't give too much away, but it was really creepy. Like, he kept going to hell, like phasing there, and it was really just creepy. But the last one we saw was these gay dudes. There's a young dude and an old dude, and they were gay dudes living with each other, which whatever floats their boat. But the old man owned a weird company and made a clone of himself. And the clone came there to keep the young dude company, and the clone kept getting kind of weird and violent. But I don't want to give too much away, but maybe I do on this one because it's just so Like God, I would only watch it once, that's for sure. But anyway, I'll just go ahead and say what happened. Basically, the dude whacks the young guy. The old dude gets sick, so he whacks the young dude, and he just lives with his clone. And the episode ends with the clone blowing him, like old man clones.
That's really out there, dude.
But the next episode, we're watching
single watch, but yeah,
the next episode, Henry Winkler is in it, the Fawn. So I'm like, dang,
old Fonzie.
Some episodes are obviously better than others. I wouldn't watch the one I just talked about ever again, probably ever. Those are the things you only watch once. But the Henry Winkler, here's hoping. Hopefully, some kind of doctor or something. It's some kind of weird doctor story with him. I haven't watched it yet.
Football coach who wears high heels.
But I love anthology stuff like Tales from the Crypt, Creep Show, Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight. Like, I love that format, and it's hard to find, so I'm glad they're doing it. There's a weird ass episode in the first season of American Horror Stories where these like mutant feral mongoloid mutant things live in national parks, and the government knows they're there, and people are like getting ate by them, and like this dude comes across all this crazy like park ranger paperwork, like that invoked kind of missing 411. That's a crazy one on the first season. That's really crazy. So there's some good episodes, but I'm trying to think of what else is going on Halloween wise. Here's one we watched last night that you should check out. Caddo Lake, Caddo Lake, and M. Night Shyamalan was a producer or something, but it has really good reviews.
Weird, yeah. If he's involved, it's weird.
But it's on Hulu, but crazy about these missing people and things happening in a lake that gets kind of like into weird, like
I trimmed some of the fluff on my streams, and one of them was Hulu because we don't watch it that often.
Yeah.
So I kind of zapped that.
It's on Disney probably too.
Oh, it might be.
I don't know, but it depends on if you have the Disney Hulu.
For Hulu separately, because I think Hulu's on Disney now for free. So
yeah, I'm not completely sure how it works out. It's on there. I don't know if you have to pay for it or not. But
no, you don't. It's part of the. It's part of being.
It's probably on there.
HBO Max guy, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely see that one. That was one of those you're like, what the hell is happening? This is crazy. A lot of time kind of stuff, but other than that, I ain't gonna say much more. But definitely a good one.
And that sweet little fluffy kitten I just showed you is now actively, aggressively trying to get to my cheeseburger that I've gotten cold and I'm trying to eat.
Ours are ninjas with stealing food and from the kitchen. You leave something out, you find it. You have to be very careful.
Oh, I've done that a couple times. I've gone to the bathroom and forgot the dog was nearby, and I come back and my food is gone. I'm like, you little bastard. Well, he's not little. He's like 140 pounds.
Come in the kitchen and the cat has a hot dog.
I haven't seen that yet, but that's funny.
No, she drug it into the bathroom. That was before you went in there. Like, there's a hot dog in here.
Definitely crazy. It's like, and we only have 4 hot dogs, 2 apiece, and you just took my freaking hot dog, you shit.
I learned early on not to leave the bathroom door open because I've had a black fluffy cat like that when I've told the story of her first 2 bodies when she was reincarnated. But anyway, the first time I had her, we always left the bathroom door open, me and my roommate. And I went in there after one time, and she had rolled all the toilet paper off the spindle onto the floor into a big pile. All the nicely fresh, clean, warm towels were on the floor in a hump, in a big pile. She pulled them all off the hand rack, and then she shredded. She literally shredded the shower curtain. Like, I don't know if she climbed up it. I don't know what the hell. But I never left the bathroom door open ever after that again. So when there's a cat in the house, all bathroom doors stay shut all the time.
Yeah.
And we're the opposite. Our cats go in the bathroom, or the kittens.
Oh, the two
we walk
boys,
in there.
Yeah, two of them will follow me into the bathroom if they're bored, and I'm like, I don't follow you to the litter box. What are you doing in here? Get out!
We found another dog, and I was like, oh my God, Christina, oh my God, what are you doing? Another dog? But it was a weird situation where you just can't just leave it. You tell a story.
First of all, it's 2 a.m, and it is what it is. He and I are having an argument, so I go driving off to the park, and literally in the middle of the road, I thought was a pumpkin, and I swerved to the side of the road because I saw its head pop up. It wasn't a pumpkin, obviously. It was a obese dog, sadly laying in the road. I thought had been hit, but I think sadly someone tossed it out. He had impacted nails, and it was literally like a surgery last night. We had to work together to get out. So the poor thing was laying in the fetal position in the middle of the road, like it had just gave up hope, and was licking something off the ground in his paw. So I'm guessing it was infected, obviously really bad. So it is what it is. Something always sadly brings these things to me that need help, and I'm always trying not to help everything in the world.
And the weirdest thing is, we always say this about every dog we find. It looks like Jack, my dog that I was really close to that died, that every dog we get that we find kind of has like weird similarities. But this one looks like it has his complete head with a fat Dotson body. Yeah. Like his head and face and eyes look just like him. And I'm not saying that's who it is, but it's weird. It's just weird shit like that.
I'm convinced my first cat was reincarnated once.
There's something to it. I don't know. I'm not going to say I know.
You saw. We found him when we went to go meet the dogs to see which we had a choice of 2 females or. No, sorry, 3 females and the one boy. We decided on the boy. That's the dog we have. We didn't take him home that day, but we were going to come back in, I think, a week to get him. Or the next day, I don't remember. But we found this cat sitting in the road right in front of our neighbor's house. So we pulled over. I ran out and went to go help him. And we saw his family underneath the porch of that same house. But he didn't want to go back with them. We kept trying to push him. There's your mom, He'd go under the fence, under the porch, and then he'd come right back to me. And we're like, we had to make a decision. Like, if we leave, he's going to walk out on the road and get killed. So we took him home, and he's been one of the coolest cats I've ever had. But he's mad about the baby kitten. But he's
going to look at
me. I call him Mr. Pumpkin.
We call him Chuck Pumpkin.
Chuck Pumpkin.
Chucky.
He has got to be at least 20 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I'm guessing someone had him and gave him lots of
just
scraps.
Laying in a median from Nightbreed, laying in the middle of the road.
Wow.
And a busy, weird road that he could have just laying there.
Thankfully, it was.
If you put his head next to Jack's in a picture, it would be. I need to try to do that somehow, but I call him jokingly Fat Jack. It's very strange. He's heavy. Okay. We were up at 6 this morning trying to get his nail out of his paw, and we did it. He had an ingrown back claw that grew into his and was wounding it, and just permanent damage.
Thank God for the e-collar.
We got it out. We had to put one of those satellites around his head because he would,
try to eat it.
Try to snap or try to eat her hand off because it hurts so bad.
A lot of work. The 2 of us.
Finally got it though. Thank God for that. But definitely no more dogs or cats. But I understand it's hard.
Yeah, we got 4 cats and 1 dog.
You don't even want to know our numbers. We should probably get a grant for a government shelter. This is pretty much a shelter, animal shelter in its own way.
Yeah.
But it's just hard. So many people are throwing them out and leaving them, and you see them, and you have to be, you can't always do it, but sometimes you just do, and you can't help it. But anywho, we got about 6 minutes. What have you been doing? Any Halloween watching, Jay?
I haven't really done any Halloween.
You better get your shit right and do some Halloween watching.
Yeah, basically, unfortunately, just to keep up for Joe's show, I've been having to watch a lot of news, which I've always hated the news.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of glad I'm keeping up with it because there's just, I mean, you say it all the time, the world's just going to hell in a handbasket, and I'm just waiting for the other damn shoe to drop, and it hasn't yet, but it's coming.
Watch that Caddo Lake if you can. That's Caddo Lake. That's really good, but weird. Like wrap your head. It's something that you'll enjoy wrapping your head around. Like it's definitely something weird. You got a lot of weird. That's crazy, intelligent, crazy.
It's trippy, but it was also kind of creepy because everything that just happened with North Carolina and the flooding and
a dam breaks and stuff in it and stuff.
I had goosebumps.
It all takes place in swamp, like wilderness, like stuff. Like I love movies like that where it all takes place like in woods and craziness. And then there was even stuff where wolves were appearing where they should not be.
Yeah.
They didn't really get into that. It's just some weirdness for sure. Parallel reality weirdness. But Caddo Lake.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely work.
Based out of Texas.
We've been watching Agatha all along. It's not bad. It's not going to be like my favorite or anything, but something that's that spinoff of WandaVision.
Right.
It's not bad though. But probably won't watch it again ever, but I'll watch it once.
I mean, it's weird. I mean, I think she's a very, very minor character that she only encounters Scarlet Witch 4 or 5 times in the comics.
It's weird because that lady's in a lot of weird comedies, like, and kind of was weird looking. She looks different, like she had like surgery.
Live, I think also.
And what?
I think she's from Saturday Night Live. I mean, that's where I think where she got.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where she was from.
Is it Anna Gasteyer?
I think I don't know. I know there's a lot of different people in it. I don't remember their names right now. I'm surprised there was no new Creep Show. I love that on Shudder. There's no season of Creep Show, but there's still a lot of Creep Show on Shudder. If you haven't seen it, they did the series and the animated specials with Mark Hamill and all kinds of craziness. That Creep Show, that's really good. But we'll be looking for something else. Okay, yeah. And we're gonna finish the American Horror Stories right now, and then find some other good stuff. We watched Harry Potter again. I didn't mind watching it, besides my stupid job bothering me during it. But I'll watch the other ones. I know Jay's a Harry Potter fan.
I like the movies. I haven't read the books, but
I didn't know if you were or not. But
the movies were okay. They didn't suck. I thought they were neat.
Interesting.
The town I live in, we have it's called Williamsboro. We have a Harry Potter weekend, and we have our version of the alleyway where you buy your magical accoutrement for school. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you know, where he goes and buys his wand and his cloaks and his school uniforms, all that crap.
Yeah, and I'm ready to get to Gary Oldman and stuff in it for sure. I remember him in it, but I've seen a lot of them, but I don't think I've seen all of them. Or maybe I have, and I just don't damn remember.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I may have seen the majority of them, but I'm not sure if I've seen all of them. But I definitely don't remember a damn thing. It's like I'm watching it for the first time. Oh, a little nasal stuff.
Not to me.
Mentholatum, baby. A little mentholatum nasal strike. But anyway, got 1 minute left. The show was Darragh Mason, Song of the Dark Man, Father of Witches, Lord of the Crossroads. Happy Halloween. You listen to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. Everybody have a good weekend. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much.